Saturday morning, 1992. You're 7, a bowl of cereal balanced on your knees, planted 2 feet from the TV since before your parents woke up. You punch the channel button, waiting for the rush of color, the theme song you know by heart, the talking dog. And it's not there. Instead, there's a man in a sweater explaining wetlands. The cartoons aren't just missing, they've been replaced. You probably blamed your local station. But what happened to Saturday morning didn't start that weekend, and it wasn't an accident. It started years earlier, in FCC hearings and cable boardrooms, with regulators, activists, and a technology quietly rewiring how kids watched TV. And here's the part nobody tells you: the cartoons didn't die. They survived just fine. What died was the ritual. Here's how it happened. The Golden Ritual. First, you have to understand what we're talking about, because if you're under a certain age, Saturday morning cartoons sounds like a quaint phrase, not a sacred institution. For about 3 decades, this was the thing. The Golden Age kicked off in 1966 when all 3 major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, handed their Saturday mornings, roughly 8 a.m. to noon, over to kids, and the shows became landmarks. Scooby and the Gang unmasking another fake ghost, Super Friends saving the world before lunch. You had your favorites, your schedule memorized, your whole weekend morning arranged around it. Here's what's almost impossible to explain to a kid today. You didn't choose when to watch. The schedule chose for you. No pausing, no rewinding, no, I'll catch it later. If you slept in, if you got dragged out to run errands, you missed it. And missing it meant something, because everyone else didn't miss it. That was the whole magic. Appointment viewing on a national scale. Millions of kids, all over the country. Same cereal, same couch, same shows, same morning. You'd get to school Monday and everyone had seen what you'd seen. A shared cultural heartbeat that only beat once a week. So what happened to it? Well, not everyone thought it was so wholesome. The problem with cartoons. While you enjoyed your cereal, some people watched the same programming with a very different expression. The most important were a group called Action for Children's Television, ACT. It started in the late 1960s around a few parents at a kitchen table in Massachusetts and grew into one of the most influential advocacy groups in broadcasting history. Their complaint was twofold. First, the advertising. Saturday morning wasn't just cartoons. It was a fire hose of commercials for sugary cereal and toys. ACT found stations airing as much as 14 minutes of ads per hour. Critics argued little kids couldn't tell the show from the sales pitch. Second, the content. By the 1980s, ACT was pointing at shows like He-Man, My Little Pony, and Transformers and calling them what they suspected they were: half-hour commercials for toy lines, dressed up as entertainment. Now, this matters. There's no villain here. ACT genuinely believed they were protecting children, and on plenty of points they had a case. A lot of that programming really was built to sell plastic, but every fix has a trade-off. And through the 70s and 80s they kept the pressure on, petitioning the FCC, testifying before Congress, laying groundwork for something bigger. In 1990, it landed. The 1990 Children's Television Act. In 1990, Congress passed the Children's Television Act. It sounds like dry legislative housekeeping. It was the regulatory dagger aimed at the heart of Saturday morning. Here's what it actually did. First, it capped advertising during kids' programming. No more than 10.5 minutes per hour on weekends, 12 on weekdays, and banned ads tied to the show airing, killing those toy commercial cartoons outright. Second, the big one. Every broadcast station now had to air programming specifically educational and informational for children. E/I, the industry called it. And in 1996, the FCC tightened the screw to a hard number, effective 1997. 3 hours of it every week, in real daytime slots where kids were actually watching. Now connect the dots. For decades, Saturday morning was a goldmine, a captive audience of kids and a wall of advertisers happy to pay for them. Cap the ads, and the block earns less. Demand hours of hard-to-monetize educational content in your most valuable kid slots, and the math collapses. So networks did the rational thing. Expensive cartoon spectacle gave way to cheap E/I filler, nature shows, earnest live-action series about kids learning to be good citizens, technically educational, technically compliant, and to a 7-year-old with a cereal bowl, technically a betrayal. But regulation is only half the story, because at the same moment, something else was pulling kids away from that Saturday window entirely. It makes you wonder, did the world actually get better when we traded away childhood imagination for corporate compliance? Because as the networks scrambled to save their profits, an entirely new empire was quietly waiting in the wings to change childhood forever. Cable, Nickelodeon, and death by competition. While regulators made Saturday morning less profitable, cable made it less special. For the whole golden age, the broadcast networks had a near monopoly. In 1970, just 8% of American homes had cable. Scarcity was the entire point. Saturday worked because it was the only time the cartoons were on. Then came channels built only for kids. Nickelodeon launched April 1st, 1979, the first ever children's network. Then Cartoon Network, the Disney Channel. And they changed the math completely because they ran cartoons all the time. Monday afternoon, Tuesday at dinner, Wednesday at 3 in the morning, if you could stay awake. By 1990, cable was in roughly 60% of American homes, and the Big Three's grip was cracking. Their primetime audience share had fallen from over 90% in the 70s to 67% by 1989. The captive Saturday audience could now get the same thing, more of it, any day of the week. Why wait all week for 4 hours of cartoons when a whole channel served them around the clock? So broadcasters were squeezed from both sides. Regulation killed the profit, cable killed the appeal. One attacked the business case, the other attacked the magic. By the 2000s, the famous Saturday blocks were mostly E/I and teen live action. The cartoons had migrated to cable, and then, on September 27, 2014, the very last broadcast Saturday morning cartoon block, the CW's Vortex, aired for the final time. No funeral, no farewell special. Fans online simply called it the end of Saturday morning cartoons, and they were right. What we lost and what survived. So here's the strange part. Cartoons didn't die. There are more of them now than at any point in history. A kid today has more shows, more access, more choice than you could have dreamed of from your spot on the carpet in 1989. What died was the ritual, not the content, the shape around it, the waiting all week, the fixed window. Knowing that across the entire country, millions of other kids were on their own couches, eating their own cereal, watching the exact same thing at the exact same moment. It was a shared experience precisely because it was limited. The scarcity is what made it an event. Today's version is, by almost every measure, better. More variety, more quality, more control. Your kid can watch anything, anytime, and never miss a thing, because nothing is ever truly on. It's all just available. But available isn't an event. When something's on all the time, it's special none of the time. The cereal and couch communal morning, the one appointment a week that belonged entirely to kids. That's what the streaming era can't recreate. You can't feel part of something happening right now when everything happens whenever you want. The cartoons survived. The campfire they were gathered around went out. We fixed children's television. Less predatory, more educational, better for kids on paper, and we never noticed that fixing it meant trading away the one unrepeatable thing, a morning a week that belonged entirely to you.